Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Miriam and I love everything book related. In 2021 I'm challenging myself to read 365 books, and every week I post a weekly wrap-up video in which I tell you about the books I've read the past week. And because the year started on a Friday, my reading week takes from Friday to the next Thursday. As you might have seen in my previous weekly wrap-up video, I read 7 books in the first week of 2021, but the second week wasn't so great. I read only 3 books. Well, there were some personal circumstances, but also I read some really big books, which one of them was quite hard to get through, and I will tell you more about that book in a video. But I enjoyed myself and I'm not too worried that I won't make it to 365. I mean, we're only like 18 days in a new year, and I will probably catch up. This week on Saturday I actually got a readathon planned, so I'll be doing lots of reading that day. I will probably film that day and I will update on my stories on Instagram, so if you want to follow me on that day, head over to my Instagram, the link is in the description. Without further ado, the books I read in the past week. And like I said, there are only 3 books. There's actually something positive about that as well, because that gives me a chance to tell you more about the books I did read. The first book I read was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and this was actually a reread. I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I did when I read it for the first time. But that might actually be because the first time I read this book I did recognize myself in the main character, in Kath. She's an introvert and she writes. The past 2 years I have discovered that I'm not that much of an introvert actually, and I changed and the main character in the book didn't, so that might be it. The parts I most enjoyed were the parts about writing, because I'm also a writer, so I really like that. Well, I ended up giving this book 3 stars, I think. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as other books I read. The second book I finished this week was Storm Sister by Lucinda Riley, the second installment in the Seven Sisters series. I listened to this book as an audiobook, so when I went on walks and everything I listened to the book. I actually started this one in September 2020, but then something happened to one of the characters and I didn't like that, so I quit. And I thought, well, maybe I am going to finish it, but not now. And so in January I picked it up again. I started from the point where I stopped. If you read books by Lucinda Riley you might know this, but Lucinda Riley, well, she always does the same. There's a story in the present and a storyline in the past, and somehow these storylines are connected to one another. And while this is great to have it in 1 book or 2 books, if it happens every time it gets a bit repetitive. That's what I do not really like about her books, but however, the second storyline, the storyline in the past in this book, was really great. I really enjoyed that one, even though things happen that I still do not completely agree with. But I really enjoy that people follow their passion, follow their dreams. As the story progressed and when we got back into the present time, I started to like that storyline more and more as well. Well, there were some cliches and some things I already saw from like very far off. Like, spoiler, the main character is pregnant, and well, when she found out I already knew for such a long time that she was pregnant. So those are things that, well, I do not really mind, but I ended up giving this book 3 stars as well. I did like it. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't that greatness that some books have. So will I continue listening to the Seven Sisters series? Well, I probably will, because I like to listen to audiobooks which aren't really complicated, if you get what I mean. The third book I read this week was actually my favourite. It's Two Crosses by Elizabeth Musser. I have no idea how to say her name. But it's about the Algeria independence war. I looked up how to say Algeria, because in the Netherlands we say Algerije and that's totally different. But it's about the independence war, and I hardly knew anything about that history, so that was really interesting for me. It took me a while to get into the book. because I had a hard time concentrating on reading. I started the book on Sunday, and well, it really took me time to get into this book. There were some personal issues, so I had not the concentration to get into a difficult book. But in the end, I got into it, and then the story became really gripping and interesting. There was some storylines that I was like, well, this sounds a bit cliche. But on the other hand, the way one character wrestled with God was really inspiring to me. It taught me something about prayer life and faith. Not everything has to be perfect. You don't have to say the perfect prayer, and you can be angry and that sort of things. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and this was my favourite book of the week. It was actually the first installment in a trilogy which I continued reading, but I did not finish the second book on Thursday. So I will tell you a bit more about that in next week's weekly wrap-up video. These were the books I read. I'm already falling behind on my challenge, but I'm very confident I will catch up. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you like to follow me on my journey where I read 365 books in a year. If you want to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my new videos, I will be back with a new video on Thursday, so be sure to check that one out as well. For now, happy reading!